Hi, this is Enthusiastic Steve, and today, my little video, we're looking at the Slim Jim antenna. Is it any good? So, the Slim Jim antenna. Now, hopefully most of you have heard of the Slim Jim antenna. Some of you may not. Some of you may have heard of a J-pole antenna. Some of you may have heard of a quarter wave or a dipole antenna. Well, let's just say there's a lot of talk out there amongst amateur radio users, shortwave radio listeners, etc., CB operators, that the Slim Jim antenna is potentially the best vertical antenna you can have. It outperforms everything else out there. Big claims, isn't it? That is a large claim to make. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at the Slim Jim, look at the way it's designed, how it functions, and do some on-air test, and let's just see if the Slim Jim is as good as they say. Okay, this is what some people say about it on air. These are some of the types of comments I've been receiving via social media, through my YouTube channel, and over the airwaves recently about the Slim Jim antenna.
My Slim Jim outperforms everything on the 4-metre band.
Hilltop, I could easily reach America on the 11-metre band using one of these Slim Jims.
I've been using Slim Jims from the 10 to 20 metre bands on HF. Brilliant antennas, beats my Yagi.
On 2 metres and 70 sims, they must produce over 6 dB again. On the UK FM 11-metre band, my Slim Jim outperforms everything locally.
I use a Slim Jim on my scanner. It outperforms a Discone by about 10 times.
I would recommend a Slim Jim for all you preppers out there, or handheld users. Brilliant.
Some brash claims there, but are they all myth, or are some of them actually true? So why is it called a Slim Jim antenna? Well, the Jim, the J-I-M, stands for a J integrated match, whereas basically you've got a folded element at the bottom of the antenna, 2 quarter wave non-radiating elements which act as a matching stub. And the fact that it's actually normally made of wire, it's actually a very thin, simple design, hence why it's called a Slim Jim. A Slim Jim can be made out of ladder line, ribbon cable, wire, or even copper pipe if you want a more substantial one. They can just be hung wire, or you can actually integrate them into like a PVC tube and have them up as a permanent base station antenna.
The Slim Jim is a member of the J-pole family. You have a J-pole, a Slim Jim, there's a Super J-pole and a collinear J-pole, as in the diagrams above. So let's take a look at the construction of a Slim Jim antenna. It's very simple. Here you can see a diagram, a design for a 4-metre band one. All these are scalable, and all the information is on the internet if you do a search. To construct this antenna, you just need some simple basic tools: soldering iron, pair of pliers, some cutters, some tape, and you're ready to go. I'm going to start at the very top of the antenna, so clip back your ribbon line, ready to clean some of the insulation off. Remove the insulation carefully to expose the wires. Carefully fold the exposed wires over neatly, and as a tip, I tape these down to my bench to make them easier to solder. Using a good hot soldering iron and get a good solder on the 2 wires, and once they've cooled down, snip them to a nice neat finish. Check the measurements on the diagram, and then get ready to measure and cut the ribbon line to the desired length. Double check your measurements. I measure in smaller lengths and then use black tape on the ribbon line to actually mark where it needs to be cut. Not forgetting, of course, to allow a few extra centimetres for the wire at the end, which you're going to cut back. Repeat the process, what you did earlier at the other end. Neatly fold them back, solder them, cut off the ends. Now that part's complete. Next, we need to work out where our 4.3 centimetre gap is going to go. So carefully measure it. Take out 4.3 centimetres. Now you've done this, unfortunately you've made the ribbon line a little bit flexible. It's just hanging on one wire. So a very useful tip is get some very light plastic, maybe from a plastic carton, etc. Cut 2 strips about the same width as the ladder line and basically sandwich the ladder line between it, and then good strong masking tape or good strong black tape or other tape over it, and this will actually act as a splint, strengthening the ribbon line. Next is the crucial bit really to make the antenna work well. You need to work out where the feed point is. Now on my diagram, a good starting point is 8.5 centimeters from the base. Measure this carefully and then remove the insulation for a few centimeters. Now, there are many ways you can connect your coax to this ribbon line. Fortunately, I had an old dipole centre sitting around, so I decided to use this. You must make sure though you connect the coax up the correct way. The braid goes to the stub and the longer edge goes to the centre coax. In this case, the red for the centre, the earth yellow green for the braid. I used washers on there to actually help hold the wire in place. You could solder this, and then of course you need to waterproof it if it's going to be a permanent installation. When you get round to testing this antenna, don't be fooled like I was to actually try and test it laying on the ground or on the bench. It will give you a false reading. The antenna does need to be up in the air. So using my fiberglass pole, I attached it to that and extended it up in the air for testing. Now, for those with a keen eye, you've probably noticed I have got a large coil underneath the antenna. Now, because of the design of this antenna, you will get RF coming back down the outer braid. It's essential you need some type of choke mechanism, be it a ferrite on the actual coax or a coil. This will stop anything coming back down into the shack. I connected up the Slim Jim to my 4-meter radio, and very surprised and happy that this is the VSWR reading I got straight off the bat. No adjustment required. Now, if your VSWR is a little bit off, you can slide the dipole centre either slightly up or slightly down to get a better match. To do some on-air tests and compare the Slim Jim antenna against my 5/8 wave, I connected both antennas to a two-way switch, and this is what I got.
Yeah, M6 OVN, Mike 6 Whiskey Victor Victor, I say. Currently I'm on the 5/8 wave antenna. I say, just give us a quick bit of modulation, I'll just check your signal. Roger. Right, you got the old chock blocks on this radio. The third one is lit up. It just flickered once. That's on the 5/8. I'm just going to dekey and switch to the Slim Jim. Mike 6 Whiskey Victor Victor to M6 OVN. Right, I've switched over to the Slim Jim antenna now. So I'm not sure if that's making any difference at all to you, Wade. I'll see how you sound. Back to you.
On the Slim Jim. So there again, the Slim Jim's in a different position than the 5/8. Maybe if you swapped them over and put the Slim Jim where the 5/8 is, it would be that you've gone down to a 5/8 now. It still flashes the 5 and 9, but a 5/8. So not as good on the, I hate to say it, but not as good on the Slim Jim.
Break, M6 Whiskey Victor Victor M0 IOW.
M0 IOW, that's Barry over on the Isle of Wight there. Good morning to you, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Steve. Good morning to Dale, Glenn there as well. On your Slim Jim, you're 1S point higher to me than you were on the other error. You're 5/8. On the Slim Jim, you was 5/9. For what it's worth, HI.
Well, thank you, Barry, and that's very interesting because I was speaking to John over at Newport the other night and I couldn't even hear him on the 5/8, but as soon as I switched to the Slim Jim, he was coming through about a signal 4. So it weird, isn't it? So it must be the radiation pattern itself coming outwards.
It works more local. I mean, you're probably about 8 to 10 miles away as a crow flies, maybe a little bit further than that, even 11 miles. It's working stronger, the Slim Jim, compared to the 5/8. But when you go a longer distance, like Glyn, who's over 30 miles from my location, the 5/8 wave just pips it. Back to you. Right, this is Barry on the Slim Jim.
Living on my own, it needs it occasionally, HI. But anyway, yeah, you yourself there.
And that, with a little bit of hiss, is on the 5/8.
You're a very good signal there, no problem
5/8.
at all. But yeah, surprising that difference in AM, in
Slim Jim.
FM and
Makes a big
SFP
difference.
and that.
So, from operating home base to home base, what are we seeing here? Well, the Slim Jim works very well up to about 26 miles. Outperforms the 5/8 wave by probably 1.5 S points. Over 26 miles and outwards to probably one of the furthest stations I can hear is about 45 miles away from my location. The 5/8 wave actually beats the Slim Jim by around about 0.5 to 1 S point. And the reason for this is the radiation pattern of the Slim Jim. The Slim Jim radiation pattern goes out almost to the horizon, almost flat. Whereas the 5/8 wave is not quite to the horizon, it rises up. So more local stations up to 26 miles away, the signal is slightly going over them and spreading downwards. Hence, once it gets over the horizon, it actually drops down to those stations further away. So let's see how this antenna performs when we go higher. With its low radiation pattern, we should get miles further. Right, we've popped out in the evening just to try out the Slim Jim antenna out portable or mobile portable. In the boot I've got the a tripod, the Slim Jim antenna, some coax. I've got a portable battery, 4-meter radio, and over here we've got the actual mast itself, which will go onto the back of the car using my homemade bracket, which you've probably seen before. Right, so I've got the Slim Jim up, it's probably about 12 feet above the car and to the top. It's not at a great height. Got it on a tripod, on a mast at the back, coax cable running in here into the door. I've got a portable battery down here, and we've got the actual radio on the shelf just here. So we're going to put a few calls out and just see how well it performs if I can get any contacts. This is Mike Sits Whiskey Victor Victor. Mike Sits Whiskey Victor Victor. Doing a test on a Slim Jim antenna, top of Ports Downhill. Mike Sits Whiskey Victor Victor, calling out for anybody out there monitoring 450 this evening. Mike Sits Whiskey Victor Victor, standing by.
Get a 3/4 wave.
Mike 6 Whiskey Victor
And all
Victor.
coming in.
This is 2E0 UIB.
Oh, this is Mike Sits Whiskey Victor Victor, and there's 2 stations that just come back. We've got M6 OVN about 32 miles away, and 2E0 UIB. John over there in the depth of the Isle of Wight. Good evening to you both. I'm going to pop up to 475 if you wish to join me. This is Mike Sits Whiskey Victor Victor. Just checking the channel is clear. Right, good evening. Mike Sits OVN if you're there, and 2E0 UIB. Glyn, do you want, as you called in just slightly first, do you want to go quickly?
On 450, I thought it'd be nice and quiet there now. Good evening. No, you want to get a 3/4 wave.
Wow, yes, one of my weapons of choice, the 3/4 wave up here. But I must put my hand up and acknowledge that in the past I have said the 3/4 wave or 5/8 is the better antenna. You are coming through a solid 8, a solid signal 8 with me, which is the strongest I've received you here on the this part of the hill.
Let's see how, fingers crossed, see how it works tonight then. See if you get a few more contacts there. Anyway, let you take it back to John. He's a bit scratchy with me.
Roger Glynn, thank you very much. Right, 2-0 UIB, thank you for standing by there. This is M6 Whiskey Victor Victor, currently up by Nelson's Monument on top of Portsdown Hill, testing the old Slim Jim antenna he's just built. Anyway, how are you keeping, John?
Okay, Steve. Yeah, you're a lot stronger than you were at home, but that's to be expected if you're up on Portsdown Hill. Back to you.
Yeah, Mike Sits, Whiskey Victor Victor Return. And while you're coming through a cracking signal 8 here, 8 plus, I'm just using a homemade Slim Jim antenna, which I've mounted on a fiberglass pole on the back of the car. It's only probably about 12 to 15 feet to the top of the pole. It's not at any great height. The hill itself is not even 300 feet, I don't think, where I am. I'm only 3/4 way up the hill, but I can see the Isle of Wight. And so it's not not too bad a signal path between us. I believe you're down in a little bit of a dip there. So good test of this Slim Jim antenna. Glyn was on there as well just now. I don't know if you was hearing him at all. You was a bit scratchy with him. He's up there in Winterslow. So Glyn's actually about probably 31, 32 miles as the crow flies. So he's definitely over the horizon from here. And he's coming through the strongest he's ever come through on this Slim Jim. So very pleased with its performance so far. Have you been up to much, John?
No, I haven't been up to much, Steve. Negative, I can hear Glyn. I've never been over to hear Glyn. Location, as I say. But that Slim Jim that you're using, is that the one you were testing from your home base the other night when I spoke to you? Back to you.
Yeah, Mike Sits Whiskey Victor returning. Yes, it was John. That was the one. It seemed to be getting like barriers on the island as well. It was pulling him in a lot stronger than the 5/8, and but it didn't work quite as well over to Glyn up there in Winterslow. But I think it's got a low takeoff angle, and that's the secret with the Slim Jim. It's got a very low angle of takeoff. So up here in a raised position, I am getting a very strong signal from longer away. But of course, nearer ground level, it hits the horizon or hits the radio horizon and runs out of steam. But yeah, it's for what it is, a little bit of ribbon cable, 450 ohm. It took me about 20 minutes to build outside on the bench, soldering iron, measuring tape. And it's very, very cheap to manufacture. Yeah, most people have got a bit of wire. You don't even need ribbon cable, really. You could make just out of pieces of cable and just put spacers in. So very pleased, and it's scalable to other bands. So you can use it on 11 meters. You can use it on the HF bands. You can use it on UHF and VHF. Just scale it up or scale it down. So yeah, it does work fairly well there, John. Back to you. Yeah, Mike Sits Whiskey Victor returning. And if you can hear me he's just visiting the little boys' room. But if you can still hear me, because he's probably might have the door open. The J-pole and the Slim Jim, the bottom sections are purely matching, and they deconstructively basically they don't transmit anything at all. There's no radiation coming out at all from the lower quarter wave sections, and you can, because of that, you can, if you're limited for space and you want to hang one in the loft, there is nothing stopping you from actually bending the lower quarter wave to a 90-degree angle. It makes no difference at all to the VSWR or the output of the actual radio itself, antenna itself. It works extremely well. So yeah, there's no output from there at all. It's only the top radiator section, and only because the top is folded over. It's basically an end-fed folded dipole, and you get a little bit of an increase over a J-pole from a Slim Jim, but it is marginal. A Slim J-pole is a very good antenna. There's also a collinear J-pole, which I'm tempted to have a build of in the future. I still think there's a place there for a collinear, especially on 4 meters of whatever description. So a J-pole collinear looks feasible for the amateur builder, i.e. like myself. So we'll give that a go probably. Anyway, I really appreciate you, everybody, coming in tonight and coming back to my call, because you never know. I say, 4 meters is that dead channel, isn't it, when nobody's on here at all. But as you're aware, around here, some nights every channel's full up. So I know there's a net starting shortly on the other frequencies. So I'll probably just have a little monitor. I'm not going to stand too long up here tonight. And I've got to pack away shortly. So we'll go home for my tea. So all the very best, gentlemen.
Had a good day this morning at work, and an easier day this afternoon, perhaps. And 0RJL G4WY.
Yeah, okay then, Brian. Yeah, like you say, it was.
Right, that concludes that little test out mobile on top of Portsdown Hill. Couldn't have asked for a better test, really. Loads of stations coming in. Never disappoints, 4 meters, especially down here in the Solent area. Anyway, let's go drive back home now, and we will conclude this this video. Well, there's the setup there tonight. There's Nelson's monument up there, not to be confused with Nelson's column, of course. And there's the actual car with the Slim Jim on top. Not that high, it can go up a lot higher, but there's the Slim Jim clearly on the actual pole. It's working really, really well. Really pleased. A massive thank you, guys, for watching another Enthusiastic Steve video. Please consider subscribing. It helps with my viewing figures and numbers on YouTube. All the very best, and take care out there. This has been Enthusiastic Steve.